Hey everyone, Dustin here, CEO of 630. Today we're gonna build the simple step through fat tire electric trike. Now this is the box it's gonna come to you in. It is 63.5 inches long by 34 inches wide. And the box itself is 32 inches tall. Now we have it up on these pallet feet here. So that elevates it to 35 inches high. Now the weight of this is going to be approximately 100 pounds. So if it is being delivered to you, you probably want to ask the delivery company to get it as far up your driveway or into your garage if possible. Okay, now I recommend having some snips available or scissors will work as well. And you'll just want to cut these bands here. And the box is secured with staples. So be very careful when opening because the staples will pop through the cardboard here. And so we'll go ahead and open these. I recommend trying to keep the box intact should you need it in the future. Now, this is actually doubled boxed, so we have a box inside the box. And the bike does come about 90% assembled, as we'll show you. And so we'll bring you in for a close-up to show you what it looks like looking down on the bike. All right, so here's what it looks like. You can see you've got your basket secured on here. Now, there's a lot of zip ties we need to go through and start snipping. So I'm gonna snip this one for the basket here. We got two actually, right here's another one. Oh, sorry, make that 3. Let me go ahead and find the third one. Okay. All right, that's down there. Now you'll just have to do a little looking. Actually, there's four securing that, okay. So let's go ahead and move our basket safely off to the side. Okay. Now you can see a lot of this is already assembled. If you take a look here, the rear wheels are on, brakes are on. If you look here, this is your rear differential, which is a nice feature on this trike. So I'm gonna start coming through and just cutting all the zip ties. Let's get this wheel free. Okay. All right, so from there, I can go ahead and pull out the tire and the wheel. Set that up here. All right, now we are left with the frame here. And let's take a look. We got any other zip ties here? Okay, we got one right here. Cut that off. We got one right here as well. All right, now our handlebars can actually come free. And I'm just going to insert these into the head tube here just as a quick sort of holding place. All right. Okay, now, in order to get this out, it's either going to be a 2-person job, or one thing you can also do is just cut the front of the box right here, and you can just slide this panels down. So if you did need to reuse the box, you could just tape up these 2 corners here. That's an easy way to do it. I'm gonna try to leave it fully intact. So I will show you what it looks like taking it out by yourself. I'm just gonna go ahead and snip all these. Now, if you do have to take it out as well, you also could remove the battery before lifting it out, which would drastically reduce the weight and make it quite a bit easier. Okay. Let me just go ahead and... Okay, so I think I'm actually gonna do that. I'm gonna get the key here, which your keys are right here on the handlebar. So I'm gonna snip those off. And you just insert your key here. And we can take the battery off. Now this battery weighs 10 pounds of 15 amp hour. It's a pretty hefty battery. Okay, so I'm gonna grab it from the back here and then come up. Ugh. Now, honestly, getting it out of the box and without the front wheel and the battery, it's not too bad. All right, now just also do a once over in the box. Just make sure you don't see any loose parts. One thing I do want to point out is pieces like this black plastic, these are packaging. Okay. And also I'd like to point out too, this is important, is this metal piece through the axle here, that is also packaging. That is there to prevent the forks from bending in transit. Okay, I'm gonna position it on the mat and we'll get set up for the assembly. I'm gonna leave a lot of the frame packaging on just to go ahead and protect it while we're in the assembly process. But I'll just pop these off so I can have a clear vision of what I'm working with. All right. And we're gonna start with the front wheel and the front fender. So let's get all the packaging off up here. Okay. And we actually still have a zip tie on there I'll have to cut off. Okay, this is our front light here as well. So I'm just gonna pull a little bit of this off on the frame and just scoot that down. Okay, so your front fender comes inside of the rear basket. So let's go ahead and unpackage this. Okay, so the shorter part of the fender will go in the front and the longer will go in the back. And right here, we have our front light. So let's get this all unpackaged as well. All right, now there's a zip tie on here. You're gonna wanna cut that off too. Just be careful not to snip the cord. All right. Okay, so now these are actually threaded bolts through the tab right here. So when you come to install the front fender, you're better off just loosening these bolts, but still leaving them in. They are threaded. Now there's a spacer behind here. So what you're gonna wanna do is you're gonna wanna get, and you probably wanna come in through the top here so we can see looking down. Okay, so you have these two tabs. Those are gonna go on the inside here like that. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this back one in here. All right, so you're gonna bring your light right here and then put your bolt on right there. Hand tighten it as much as you can. Now you want the light to be pulled up to the top of the bolt. And if you have a ratcheting wrench, it'll make this substantially easier. Okay. Go ahead and get that as tight as you can. That way your fender won't move around. All right, good to go there. Now we just have to put the bolt on the back side of this one. So just make sure with your 4mm, you tighten that bolt all the way through. And then we can come in here and put our nut on. There we go. And again, the ratcheting. Oops. Okay, so the back came a little loose, so let's just go ahead and okay. Yeah, now the fender is nice and sturdy in there. The light's good. Now your light can adjust here. So if you want to tighten that down as well, that's a 4. And right here on the side, oops, let's see here. Now we've got to get the, there's a bolt on the other side here as well. So you got to get your wrench, your 8mm, and your 4mm Allen key. And then your light will be nice and sturdy as well. All right, from here we can move to putting on the front wheel. So you first will need to remove this bolt. Now this is gonna be pretty tight here. More than likely, you will need a tool to remove it. So this should be 15mm. Let's just go ahead and see. Okay. And once you kind of just get it unlocked, you should be able to hand loosen it. There we go. Okay. And just come over to the other side. All right. Now again, this is completely garbage, so don't worry about anything on there. Okay. All right. Now, still have one zip tie right here. This is your connection. Just make sure not to snip that at all. Alrighty. Okay, so we've got a lot of washers going on here. Okay, first thing I did is just take all the washers off and set them in 2 different piles. So you've got your one side here and the other side here. Okay, you're gonna start with these washers with the little notch here. And you can see these are gonna go on the inside of the wheel. So you're gonna slide those on with the notch at the bottom, like so. Now, gonna lift up our fork, okay? And from here, you wanna make sure you get the disc inside of the caliper, okay? You got to make sure this washer is also tight. Take my glasses off here. Okay, so we're inside the caliper. And now we just have to make sure the washer stays very tight. Now there's not a lot of room in there. It's a very tight fit. So make sure your disc is in the calipers and then you'll see the fork will slide on. Now, don't give up, you'll get it on. Also, if you get stuck on the axle, just kind of move the wheel forward and backward a little bit, and that should allow the fork to slide onto the axle. Okay, now from here, we're moving on to these washers, which have this little notch here. And if you see here on the frame, there's a little hole. So those are gonna slide in and that will go into that hole there. Okay. You can see this one in there as well. Now, from here, we have a bolt that is in the frame. So we're gonna pull that out. All right. And now we're gonna move on to this piece right here. Now these are all safety mechanisms to ensure your wheel is always properly attached. Okay, so from here now, you're gonna line that up so the hole goes over the hole we just pulled this screw out of. And we're gonna tighten that in. Okay. And we'll just repeat that on the other side as well. Okay. All right. Now we're getting to the home stretch. You can put your final washer on right here and your bolt. All right, we'll just hand tighten that on. Same thing on this side. Okay. And then you're going to come in with a 19 millimeter, or if you have an adjustable wrench, you can also do that as well. Or a ratchet set will work. And just push that down, get it as tight as you can. You don't want to step on it or anything, but definitely want to get some good torque on there. Okay, now we got our front wheel on. Now, from here, we can attach, now this zip tie right here, we can actually leave here, and you're gonna feed your motor cable through, like so. And there's gonna be arrows on here to match this up, like so. So match those up, and then just tighten on your connector, and then from there, pull that down, and then we can snip the excess. Okay. All right, I'm gonna pass it off to Peter here now. The best bet is before you put your basket on, you adjust your rear disc brakes and also the rear derailleur. Now, both should come pre-tuned from the factory. You can give them a test and see how they perform. The gears should also be pre-tuned, but Peter is going to show you, should you need to make those adjustments, how to do it. Now, if you're not comfortable doing that, please take it to a bike shop or have a mobile mechanic come. If you need to find one or need help finding one, reach out to us. But we definitely recommend getting the brakes dialed in correctly before you go out for your first ride. So I'm gonna pass it off to Pete.
All right, cool. So how's everybody doing? My name's Peter. I do a lot of jobs here, but one of them is I get to pinch hit in when we do the brakes and the derailleur here on Dusty's assembly videos. So let's get to it. Like he mentioned, everything should be pre-adjusted from the factory. However, if there are some tweaks or adjustments that you like to make, or there's something not quite to your liking, please contact us or go ahead and follow along with me here. Disc brakes are not complicated or difficult, but they can take a little while sometimes to finesse them. The tolerances are very minuscule actually. And I usually do it by sight. There's a couple different ways to do it, but we'll just go ahead and I'll show you kind of the hack way, and then I'll show you how to dive a little deeper into the details if you want to get a little closer adjustment. All right, cool. So here's brakes. All we need actually for brakes is a 5mm Allen wrench. All right. This Allen wrench is fine, or the one that was provided with the bicycle. I also like to use one that has a ball end on it because it's a lot more maneuverable in tight spots. So the first thing we're gonna do, yeah, these feel great straight out of the box. I actually wouldn't adjust these at all, but you know, we're gonna show you how to do it just in case you feel like you need to. So we have 2 in the back and 1 in the front. We'll just start off over here. So what we do is there are 2 mounting bolts right here. We're not gonna mess with those at all. We're actually going to mess with these guys. This one, and let me see if I can get it here without getting in the camera. This guy and this guy right here, those are our adjustment screws there. All they do is they actually also just hold the caliper onto its mount, and then it has little slots. The caliper itself has little slots, so that when you loosen these guys here, there we go with my 5, then the caliper is loose, so it can be adjusted back and forth to fit around the rotor, all right? It's called a disc brake, but then when you're talking about this piece here that's the disc, it's actually termed a rotor. The bike industry has all sorts of interestingly confusing nomenclature like that. Also, we like to use both metric and English measurements. It's fascinating. All right, so the hack way to do it is that we've loosened those 2 adjustments there, and then you go ahead and you can, oh, sorry. We'll go ahead and here, we have a place to adjust one of the discs over here, also a 5 right here. I'm just gonna go ahead and turn it in a little bit, and this is pushing one of the pads inward, okay? So in this case, it's probably making it too tight because these brakes were already adjusted quite nicely, straight from the factory. But just for these, for purposes of instructing you, we will tighten this pad a little bit. Then we'll go up to the brake lever, and I'm gonna give it a squeeze and hold it. And while I'm holding that squeeze, now the idea is that while the brake lever at the handlebar is squeezed, the caliper will self-align, right, naturally, because it's just grabbing onto the rotor there. And so while I'm keeping the lever held with my other hand, I'm gonna tighten these guys down. Now, this hack is a good kind of quick way to get a basic adjustment, but I usually find that you need further adjustment if you really do feel like the brakes aren't how you want them. But there's a nice quick way to get a basic adjustment. There we go. And then make sure it's nice and tight. These are the brakes again, so they're very, very important. Probably the most vitally important part to the vehicle other than the wheels themselves. Okay, so now what I can do, this is gonna be tight because I tightened that one pad, but they should be relatively aligned. I'm turning it like this, and I can hear a little bit of rubbing. A little bit of rubbing is okay. It's also a nice consistent light rubbing, but what we'll do is I'll go ahead and back off that pad by turning counterclockwise, a couple turns, and then also check the lever feel. So one way to gauge how tight you want the brakes is to actually pull on the lever. You want the lever to pretty much start giving you resistance about halfway through the pull. You never want the brake to be able to be pulled all the way to the grip. That would be much too loose. So you want to start giving you resistance about halfway through the pull and then come to a stop well before it touches the grip. Your brakes will settle in over time. These are mechanical discs, so they will settle in a little bit. So you'll need to tighten them as you ride. Okay, so that feels pretty good. It's a little bit looser. I'm expecting it to rub probably just a little bit still, because usually you need a little bit more of a fine tuning than just the quick general way I did it. But actually there's no rubbing at all. So I just adjusted that brake perfectly, honestly. Which usually doesn't happen because usually you need a little bit of fine tuning if you want to take all the rubbing out. Sometimes there's a little part where there might just be a little bit of rubbing. The way to fine tune this is different. So instead of doing that little hack that I just showed you, we'll go ahead and do the fine tuning in a different way, which is we'll go ahead and loosen the adjustment screws again. There's a difference between a screw and a bolt, but sometimes using the word bolt just feels a little better than screw, even though I think these are technically screws because they screw in instead of a bolt, which usually passes through and then is attached with a nut. But I could be completely wrong, and if I am, please let me know in the comments. I've been corrected before in the comments, and I'm always happy to, to learn. For the longest time, I still do, I call the derailleur a derailleur, because growing up at a bike shop, that's what they called it there. But yeah, the correct pronunciation is derailleur, not derailleur. But that'll be a hard habit to break. But a YouTube commenter let me know, and he was absolutely right. So anyway, now what you can do is with the 2 adjustment screws loose, you can fiddle with the caliper here, and you can actually look and see, the camera probably can't pick it up, but you can see a little bit of daylight, a sliver of daylight on either side of the rotor, between the rotor and the pad on each side. So what you can often do is put a sheet of white paper or some light colored surface behind there, and you can see the daylight on both sides. And then what you do is very carefully lining the caliper up as you tighten down the screws back and forth. Make sure that the rotor has clearance on each side and all the way down. So I'm going to try and look at it this way without getting in the way of the camera. It's a little hard to see from this angle, but looks okay right there. And then you can just kind of go back and forth, tightening them down as you get it closer and closer to the exact alignment that you want. Again, basically, all you're looking for is clearance of the rotor past both pads with a little sliver of daylight between them, and then also that has the correct tightness. And we usually, like I said, gauge that by squeezing the brake lever at the handlebar and making sure that it starts to give us resistance about halfway through the pull. So there we go. We've got just where we want it by using the sight method of making sure there's a little bit of sliver of daylight between each pad and the rotor. And then again, you can just lift up the wheel, check it, and see if there's any rubbing. I can actually hear it rubbing just a slight little bit on one side, so I might want to check again while I'm rotating the tire and see where the rotor may be touching it. If there's a little touch like this one has, it's just a slight little rub in one spot, that's not a big deal at all, and honestly the pad will adjust itself to that eventually. But if you don't like it, then you could just continue to make tiny little small adjustments that way. Okay, that's it. So the right wheel, the left wheel, and the front calipers are adjusted all the exact same way. They're the exact same thing. So there you have it. Hey everyone, Peter again. Here we are. We're going to adjust the derailleur now. Okay, so it's a little bit different than like, if you have a bicycle, which obviously is easiest to do in a bike stand. But with this bike, it's actually kind of easy too, because we can tilt it down, okay? We're gonna tilt it over, and I'm gonna lean it on this little work stool here. And then we can work on the derailleur, because it's always easiest, in my opinion, to work on the derailleur if you can pedal the pedals while you're doing it, okay? It's much easier than if you have to stop and start pedaling. So I'm just gonna lean this over here on this little work stool here, okay? So the shifter's right here, and I can turn like this, and then we can actually shift, because with a derailleur like this, you actually have to be pedaling while you shift. You want to make sure that you're pedaling while you shift. You don't just shift without pedaling. The pedaling is an integral part of the shifting. So here we go. We're going to go along, and the first step, the very first step, actually before I even tell you the first step, let me tell you something important. If you follow my exact steps, then you will be able to adjust your derailleur perfectly, okay? This may be something that seems almost impossible to a lot of people who have tried this at home and have not been able to follow the steps properly. However, it's only because they aren't doing the correct sequence of steps. If you do this in the right procedure, it's almost infallible that you will get it perfect, okay? So please pay attention to the exact steps that I do, and then you will have no problem. And this will be the first time in your life that you've ever correctly adjusted a derailleur, and you'll be amazed and very happy at how simple and easy it is. In a bike shop, I can literally take a bike that is out of adjustment and adjust those gears in 40 seconds and pull it back out of the stand. Yes, it's true. It won't be that fast today because we're going to be showing you how we're doing it, but it'll still be pretty fast. We only need 2 tools. We need a 9mm for this particular one and a Phillips screwdriver, okay? Some of them require a 5mm Allen, but this one doesn't. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab a 9mm. Oh, I already did. I think it's in my pocket. There she is. Okay, cool. Alrighty, so what we're gonna do, the very first step, please listen. We're going to pedal, and on this particular model, we're going to push the thumb button to go to the higher gear. We're gonna go all the way to 7th gear, okay? That's the first step. Make sure that the shifter on the handlebar is in 7th gear. All right, fantastic. Now, what we might find or should find is that the chain is also in the 7th gear, which is the little one. It seems counterintuitive to a lot of people, but the high gear is the little guy. This one is in 7th gear, because actually these gears are already pre-adjusted at the factory, so they are working perfectly, but we're gonna go ahead and do them again anyway, just to show you how to do it. So the second step, after we make sure the shifter's in 7th, which is incredibly important, is to go ahead and loosen the cable pinch nut here. Just a few turns so that the cable is no longer attached to the derailleur. Now that means that the shifter and the derailleur are not communicating anymore. They have no way to talk to each other, okay? So what we need to do, since the shifter's in 7th, we need to make sure that the derailleur's in 7th. Now, we can do this by sound. That's the easiest way, actually, since we're able to pedal while we're working on it. So now I'm gonna grab my Phillips. There are 2 screws right here on the derailleur. They are marked H and L, okay? They're very tiny letters and they're hard to read. The H is the one that's more forward, and the L is the screw that's more backward. The H screw is going to be for adjusting it's the high limit screw. It's for adjusting the high gear, okay? It basically tells the derailleur how far the spring can pull it outward away from the center of the bike. So what I'm going to do, I will go ahead and tighten that screw. It's going to be a little tricky right here with that wheel in my face, but if I turn this screw in far enough, I'm turning it the regular tightening way, clockwise, it's going to shift the derailleur into 6th gear. Here it's starting to shift now. There it goes. Now, I just forced the derailleur into 6th gear by using the high limit screw, okay? So sometimes that's why your derailleur is actually stuck in 6th and won't go down to 7th, is because the screw is in the way. So now, since we know the shifter's in 7th, let's go ahead and make sure the derailleur is also in 7th gear. So now we're going to back it out. We'll hear start to make noise. Now it's in 7th again, but it's still making noise. So we're going to back off just go slowly until it stops making noise. There it is. So that's perfectly in 7th gear, right? So now the shifter's in 7th, and the derailleur we know is also in 7th. So they are harmonized. However you might want to put it. I don't know. I was trying to come up with some other word, but that one sounds a little goofy. So now that we know the shifter's in 7th and also that our derailleur is also perfectly in 7th, right in 7th, not making any noise, we can reattach the cable so they can recommunicate now that they are on the same page. Now, when you're reattaching the cable, make sure that you don't move the derailleur around like this, okay? Because that will affect where the, well, actually it doesn't much, but I would just leave it where it is. And then you do want to make sure that you take out as much slack of the cable as possible, although you don't need to pull too hard because we also have another little trick to address that. So the main thing is just grab the cable, put it back in where the pinch bolt is, give it a little tug to make sure it's reasonably taut, and then go ahead and tighten that 9mm nut down. There we go. Now I'm going to have to hold the derailleur here to give it a nice, secure pinch. There we go. Perfect. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go up, we're going to go down from 7 to 6 to 5 to 4 to 3 to 2 to 1, one at a time. And the derailleur the shifter is going to pull on this cable and pull the derailleur into each gear. It may be, it usually is, that the cable is not quite tight enough at some point along that transition to get into one of the gears. We can make little micro adjustments on the tightness of the cable using this barrel adjuster, okay? The barrel adjusters are very common on brakes and derailleurs on bicycles. Now what we want to do is the barrel adjuster is also a little bit counterintuitive because you want to move it in the loosening direction, the counterclockwise direction, and that will pull out a screw that actually tightens the cable, okay? So if we don't have enough tension, we can use this barrel adjuster to turn it counterclockwise to give us a little more tension to pull it into the next gear. So let's go ahead and shift one by one and see how good our adjustment is. Okay, so I'm in 7th, going around, and now I'm going to shift to 6th. Oop, I went too far. Good, just one click. Okay, that went into 6 perfectly. Now we'll go to 5. Again, nice and smooth and easy, and I don't hear any chattering noise like it's trying to go into the next gear or back into the other one. 4, perfect. 3, 2, oh, get a little reach here. And then 1. Okay, so that's perfect. Now, the low limit screw is usually not one that you need to adjust, but all it does is make sure the chain doesn't go too far and then come off of the final gear, first gear, the large one, okay? And Lisa, you may be able to show it here. Can you come over here and see? Okay, so here's the low limit screw. This one really usually doesn't need to be adjusted. You just want to make sure that the derailleur can't go farther than the first gear. I usually don't end up touching it, but at the end of the screw, it actually hits a part of the body of the derailleur. Usually you can give it about 1 millimeter, so it has a little bit of play, but certainly not enough to allow the chain to come off of the first gear. Now let's go ahead and come back down and make sure that it actually goes into the higher gears like it's supposed to. So now we're on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now those worked great, and that was really nice for the presentation. But sometimes there will be a little chattering, maybe in like 3rd or 4th gear, and so you may need the cable a little tighter or a little looser. Again, you can do that with the with the barrel adjuster here. And so if it wasn't quite going from say from 4th to 3rd, then you would need to put a little more tightness on the cable by backing out the barrel adjuster. We actually have another video on that where I do have one that needs that adjustment, and so I do it. And this one, it's not going to help much because it's actually adjusted really nicely. So anyway, there you go. If you follow those steps, you're going to have flawless shifting. You'll be amazed at how easy it is when it's done properly. If you try and do it by any other sequence of steps, which a lot of people do, there's just really no way to ever get it right. So anyway, there you go. I know that, one thing I like to add is that you can actually do this, I promise you. You need to believe in yourself. And when I was 15 or 14, I was probably the worst bike mechanic in the world. And now after many years of a lot of fun in the bike business and having all sorts of roles, I still get my hands dirty, and it's natural to me. But I remember I didn't have a lot of confidence back then, but I had some friends and people like that gave me encouragement. And a guy that didn't think he was a mechanical guy can do everything, and so can you.
All right, so thanks, Pete, for adjusting our gears and brakes. Before we get into the basket, we need to tighten down the handlebars here. So there's a Allen key. It's a 6mm Allen key right here. We want to make sure our handlebars are nice and straight. And then come in here, go ahead and tighten this down. Now, both of these handlebar bolts are very important. I'm going to go ahead and take this off of our screen. Now, you can see here as well, there's 2 bolts right here. And this is what would adjust the tilt of your handlebars. So you can come in here with your 5mm Allen key, and you can find the perfect tilt for you if you want to adjust those. They're going to come adjusted like this. Okay. All right, so let's move to our rear basket. All right, now you can see on the frame here, we're gonna have 4 bolts that come already in. So we're gonna wanna remove these and just make sure to put these somewhere safe so you don't lose them. Okay, so obviously your tail light, or sorry, that's just a reflector, goes in the rear here. So line up the 4 bolts of the subframe with the 4 holes on the basket. And what I like to do also is we're gonna put each one in loose. That way we make sure we can get them all in, and then we'll come back and tighten. All right, so I've got all of them just sort of loose in there, and then you're gonna come back with a 4mm Allen key and your 10mm wrench and just put it on the bolt underneath and start tightening down each bolt. And then just make sure you've got 1 washer on the top and 1 on the bottom. And go through and tighten each of these. All right, so at this point, there's these plastic caps on the back axle nuts as well. There's one right here. We can remove those. Remove this one. And from here, we can just take all of our packaging off. And now you will want to fill the air pressure, the tires up. Now, if you look on the side of the tire, it'll tell you, so the max PSI on the rear is 20. And 20 on the front as well. So just make sure to adhere to that. Now, the max is 20, so you actually, if you want a little bit of a softer, more cushy ride, you can go less than that. Just know, though, that'll make the bike a little more inefficient. So I'd recommend going as close to 20 as possible. All right, now, of course, I can put our battery back in. At any point, you could have actually just put the battery back in. I just had it sitting off to the side here. So it just clicks right in. Now, for your basic startup guide, you're gonna hold this button right here on the battery. When you get it, it should be relatively charged. Now your power button is up here. One quick thing I did want to say is your pedals do come on, but you may just want to take a 15mm wrench and just give it a little tug. Those are really tight, so that's all good there. Okay. All right, so you should see the light of the battery come on. It's hard to see in the sunlight, but it is. Then you'll come up here and turn your power button on, and your screen will illuminate. Oops. Let's see here. Or not. All righty. Oh, okay, I was wrong. All right, so now the battery's actually on. If you can see, there's a little blue light. Okay, now we can come up here, turn our screen on. So the top is your energy bar for the battery. Let me go ahead and put this in 0 so it doesn't move. Here's your odometer. This is your pedal assist levels, which are controlled right here with your plus and minus, and obviously your speed. Moving over here to your right hand, this is your throttle right here, which is the twist throttle. You twist it towards you to go. This red button here is actually a button to disengage the throttle. So if it's popped out, that means that the throttle will not work, all right? If it's pushed in, the throttle will work. Right here is your trigger shifter for the gears. So you have a 7-speed derailleur. You push in to shift up. You push this to shift down. Your parking brake is engaged right here. So you pull your lever, push that in. At that point, your brake is engaged and your parking brake is on, and your bike will not be able to move anywhere. Okay, a couple quick tips here also for adjusting your bike, your trike, to get it the way you like it. Up here on the fork, we have what's called a lockout. So with your front suspension fork, you can choose for it to be unlocked, which will allow the suspension to go up and down. Obviously good if you're going over a lot of bumps. But if you're planning to ride on pavement, you can turn it to locked. And at that point now, the shocks will not go up and down. It's honestly just gonna help with efficiency. It's gonna roll smoother. If you do have it unlocked, the fork, will go up and down a lot, which is gonna just create more drag and wear on the battery. Now, it's not going to be that much drag, but you'll notice the difference. So you can play around with unlocking and locking and see which ride you like best. Now, another quick tip is on the seat here, you can adjust the angle of the seat. So there is a bolt underneath here, and this is a 6mm. So you'd come in here and just loosen this bolt. Okay. All right. And at that point, you can kind of put it in here and start to see. You got to loosen it a little more. All right. Now that you'll see this piece can slide forward or backward. So I like to have it tilted back just a touch. So it's kind of cradling me and I stay into the seat. Some people may like it a little flatter. So I'm gonna go ahead with that, which is a little bit more of an angle than it came from, straight from the factory. Okay. So just come in here. Tighten that back down. And you're good to go. And find your perfect height here. Now with the quick release seat, you're gonna want this to be fairly tight. So what you can do is tighten this side a little bit, and that will allow this clamp to be tighter. So find your height. And then when you go to clamp, it should be fairly difficult. You want it to be tight, right? So I use 2 fingers and it's nice and tight in there, although I didn't put the nose of the seat straight. Okay, come right there, clamp with my thumbs. And that feels great. So I liked it just angled a little bit back from how it came. You can find the perfect seat position for you. Okay, just a quick demo here. One thing I want to note is the battery will turn off by itself over time. So if you are off the bike for a while and you get on, you're like, oh, it doesn't turn on, check the battery, the power button. One thing I want to show, if you want to come in here close, is if you go down to 0 and then hit the minus again, it takes you to what is supposed to be an R. And at this point, if you want to back up, you can use your throttle, and now you have reverse. So really nice feature, particularly for parking, getting out of spots, tight areas, things like that. Okay, just a couple other features I want to show you here if you want to come in close. To turn the headlight on, you're going to hold the plus symbol up here. So just go ahead and hold that down and you will see the light symbol come on, meaning your light is on. And then just to turn it off, hold it again. And one other feature is there's this walk feature where if you want to walk the trike, you hold the minus button down, at which point it'll start to go. Now, I don't really love that feature. Honestly, if you need to walk and give power, you can kind of just use the throttle a little bit too. Easier to control. But if you do see the walk feature, that's what it's for. And then if you want to flip through your screen here and see, you can touch the power button. You can see your trip A, your that's the output, your current. This is the total running time. And back here, so you can flip through all those. And then you can also come in here, hold the plus and power button down, and that's gonna tell you what your max speed was. You can hold it down again. It's gonna tell you what your average speed was, and then hold it back again, and you'll be back to your regular speedometer. That pretty much sums it up. Now you're ready to go for a ride on your new simple step through fat tire ETrike. If you have any questions at all about anything, reach out to us, the team at sixthreezero.com, or call us 310-982-2877. And again, thanks for joining the 630 family. And don't forget, it's your journey, your experience. Enjoy the ride.